30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
Hi,
My name's JC McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, JC McCauley, along with the Champions of Talk, special edition, 8 o'clock, morning time. We got two local legends in Studio 1A. We're going to return to our conversation with Chris Dukes, and, of course, joining me on this conversation as we wrap up our four-part special will be none other than the one and the only man about town, the one who knows all there is to know about all things, Cacique.
Thank you, Stan, for that rousing introduction, man. I don't know if I agree with any of that stuff that you said, but especially the legend part, but I do agree. To me, Chris Dukes is a real legend because of what he has had to travail, and the brother survived it and overcame it, which is another level. You know, you don't just survive things. You have to overcome and move on, and he's done that, and he's shown us a clear path on how to achieve victory when faced with injustice.
Absolute injustice. It's horrible to be falsely accused. You know, thou shalt not bear false witness. It's a horrible, horrible crime. It's like someone assassinates your person.
Oh yes,
who you are, your character. I think the crime for falsely accusing somebody should be very, very high. Very high. If you falsely
how about putting the
someone,
person through what the other person had to go through?
I think that's fair.
And the people involved.
I think, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, we're going to get right into it. I think that in Chris' case, Stan, there are a lot of people that did some things that they weren't supposed to do, and they knew about it. They knew they were wrong, and they still did it. And now, in my country, we say, se quedaron echándose brisa. You know, they just stay back in the cool breeze now. Like nothing's going to happen to them. And I think that's the real crime. You know, here. I think that people like Jason Thody and some of the officers that investigated this, when they knew that they were wrong, the prosecutor who knew that they were wrong, and other people involved, Zuma Toro, the president of Central, she should have been fired. As soon as Chris was exonerated, she should have been let go, but there's people that are covering up people. And I think that's part of the reason why the Supreme Court took so long in deciding his case. Because they knew that there were a lot of people, they were going to implicate a lot of people whether they wanted to or not. So I think that's why it took so long. Because you're still covering up.
And if I can add by saying, good morning, gentlemen, I'm going to give you your legendary flowers because you all have played a critical role of shining light on this. And we're going to use all of the opportunities that we sat down and did these shows together, put them all together, take this road or take this show on the road. You know, this is not fiction. I mean, you know, this is nonfiction. And we do have the pathway to justice that can be clearer, that can be expedited through our local and national politicians. we can make sure that the injustices that we've all been talking about over the last couple of weeks never happens again to anybody else. No children and so forth. And we talk about impact, and I'll jump in on the topic regarding false witness or false testimony. There is no deterrence in our state right now other than before you sign a document, there's a statement that says, I signed this under the penalty of perjury. But there's no enforcement. Clearly in this case, you started to name some of these folks, but I want to give them their titles. We're talking about from the governor of this state, the lieutenant governor of this state, countless state representatives, countless state senators. I went outside of my district to make sure that I casted enough light on these injustices. Going down to our Congress folks, our entire delegation, and I said last week, I believe, with the exception of Johanna Hayes, I did not go to her office as often as I went to everybody else. All right, we go back to even I left out last time, our city council here in Hartford. Our mayors have known about this.
Both
all
of
right,
them.
so Bronin and Arvalampalam knows about this case in depth, but the problem is that the cover-up is so well performed because this was a part of the agenda. If you come out and speak out against it, they have a formula for choking you out, and this is where we talk about the chokehold.
Well, Chris, you know, I mentioned some people, you mentioned some people now, but the fact is that their behavior is nothing to be surprised about. You know, they're doing exactly what they're kind of trained to do, which is nothing, right? But my concern is more with the local support and individuals that at some level have some kind of influence or power to influence the people that we mentioned earlier, right? So, you know, for example, I want to know what Bishop Bailey did for you, for example. Let's use him. He's a big shot, right? What did he do?
To be honest, I'm not sure if Bishop Bailey was aware of the situation.
You got to be kidding me. That's like saying that you don't know what happened January 6th, man.
I can tell you. So
well, hold on. Let's move on from that one. Let's do the bishop of the first cathedral. What did they do over there?
That is the one.
Oh, that's the same one. So,
yeah. Right.
Let's talk about another. So the brother from the church on Main Street, Stan, the big church.
Main Street.
Where?
The
The Spanish speaking brother, right across from Sands.
Right.
But anyway,
I just
want to know more local support. Yeah. People like that. What did the local churches, the black and brown church, do to support you?
So let me give you that answer. Is first off, let me let you know who I actually contacted. So anyone who I named earlier, whether it be their office or their name, I personally contacted them.
Okay.
I personally have the receipts of all of my communications with them over the years. The meetings that were had and so forth. So I have all that. The reason why you did not hear me mention someone as Bishop Bailey is because even though I saw him over the years, I had never directly contacted him. I can tell you that there may be not even a handful of pastors that I know that assisted in some way. I will tell you that most let me know that they were going to be praying for me. Right.
So they did nothing, right? So let's cut to the chase, man.
Yeah. So the prayers were there. The organizing rallies, doing justice as we are required to do, that did not happen. At no point in time did any pastor step up and say, we're going to organize this event. We're going to go and help your children. That's including the church where my children were baptized. But here's how I get through that. I don't have the venom of, oh, you should have done, because here's what I know. I know that what was required to be done according to God's plan was done. So I might not have had all the support that I wanted, but I had just enough to get me through the experience. Stan is a pastor, so I can say Stan, everybody knows what Stan has done for me in that part. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now that we are through this part, and the event is not over, there's still a lingering issue happening right now, still within our family. because of, again, one, the application of the chokehold and the politicians, the city officials, the government employees, the members of the law enforcement community who all sustain the narrative to protect themselves. That's the problem we still have. And I would hope as we continue our conversation, we're going to continue the transparency part, but accountability must happen for the people who allowed this to go on, who purposely destroyed evidence, did not preserve evidence on purpose, because it could clearly outline which law enforcement officers were involved, which state attorney representatives were involved, through the chief state attorney. So many people have escaped accountability by running to retirement. So we have work to do.
So that's beautiful. And so now I'm just, I picked out these individuals, not because I have anything against them,
right,
but because when we talk about accountability, brother, we have to talk about the accountability that these individuals and their organizations have to the community. And you as a member of the community deserve that. And I picked them because they have influence, right? Or power to influence the lawmakers, the decision makers, right? And they haven't done that. So let's move on from them now. We know that they have done nothing all along, and they continue to do nothing, right? We just want to be clear. So what about the city council, your state rep, the state senator, your U.S. senator, any of these people? What have they done? Let's get some names out here, because these are the same people. And the reason that I'm bringing this out now, folks, is because these are the same people, right, that know that there's a genocide being committed in Palestine. There's a huge war going on, and this continues to go on in Ukraine and Russia, right? They're sending billions of dollars to these conflicts, and these are the same people that tell us that we have to lay 200 or 300 teachers off because we don't have enough money to teach our kids, but we have enough money to fund the genocide and the war. So we just want to know their names, because they perpetrate themselves as being good people. But my argument would be that you can't be a good person when you're funding things like that and you're not taking care of the things at home. So what about these folks, Chris? What about your the city council, the former mayor? What about them? What kind of support have you received, if any, from any of these folks?
So that's a great question that you ask, and I'm going to answer it this way. I hate to answer a question with a question, but I think it'll get us to where we want to be at the end. Can you name, off the top of your head, any city council member, any mayor, just in the state, any representative, senator, whether it be state or federal, can you name any of them that you have seen come out and speak openly about wrongful incarceration, false testimony, and imprisoning the innocent in this state? Can you name one of them?
No, not off the top of my head.
Right.
I could name one. Only one.
Go
the
ahead.
only one I can think of. Josh Mitchum.
To get back to the question,
I just want to be honest with you, okay? I'm not pulling no punches.
Yeah.
Any white person that you name is going to get an asterisk, because as far as I'm concerned, that's a privileged perspective. But go on, brother.
Well, I'll go back to answer it. So because you and I cannot come up with a name, the reason why is because there are none. To speak out openly against the wrongful convictions, and I'll go back to Josh itself, and Josh understands this. I know Josh, the working family class party, working family party, is outnumbered, and I know that in my experience between Josh and Tiana, that each of them tried to bring initiatives forward, but the others followed along the line, and they couldn't get anything done. But that still does not absolve them from knowing what's happened in the city. I spoke before the city council on numerous occasions. I've submitted written materials for them to review as well. They know full well what my claims have been. They know full well they could never refute any of them. But yet and still, there is not one member of the city council, and I can tell them they've been on notice, I want to say since December 14th of 2020. Not one has done anything to prevent this from happening to anybody else, nor they any of them respond in any way, not even an email or phone call.
Well, see, to me, that's important.
Yes.
Kasike mentioned two local, bishops. I think to a certain degree, organizations that serve the community do have a level of accountability, but I think there's plenty of room for debate as to, what level of accountability they have in particular areas. But the electeds,
Yes.
particularly in this case, because it involves local police who are answerable to those electeds, and you have public safety committees.
Man, that was beautiful, Stan. How you just
Who-
absolved the
No,
religious community from any responsibility.
we're gonna get back to
I didn't resolve.
No,
I
that
didn't
was-
absolve
we're gonna get
them.
back to that.
Catholic, like, bro.
Yeah, we're gonna
No,
get back.
no.
We'll
I
get
didn't.
back.
I didn't absolve.
Go ahead.
them.
No,
I
you
said
didn't.
it's a worthwhile conversation and debate, but that would take up the whole program.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's a slight departure from what we're
Yeah.
actually talking about. That's why I say worthwhile. I hold them accountable for all kinds of things. However, so that we don't digress.
Yeah, yeah.
My point is that the police chief, who's appointed by the mayor, answers to the chief elected official, but oversight of the executive branch is the purview of the city council, and the city council has a whole public safety committee to
Yes,
which
they
they can
do.
hold him accountable, and ultimately they have the power to actually terminate him. So, in that he has brought forth information to the city council for which they did nothing with,
Nothing.
it's very problematic.
Right. And again, this is because of the cover. So what they rely on well, let's go back and see what the police report says. But if the police report is full of lies,
Right.
then they're stuck with that, and that's the problem. I have people that be like, oh, all you got to do is FOIA the report. I think I used this as an example a couple of weeks ago, the Central Park 5. Go back and look at their police reports, their arrest warrants, their first trial transcripts, and so forth. These men, these young boys, were listed as monsters. They were guilty in writing, black and white. They confessed. They did this. All of that paperwork to us know now. Fast forward. We know all 5 of these young men were completely innocent. So don't spend time looking at the police records that are full of lies. And in my case, the Hartford Police Department lied in several places on reports. Just because the Civilian Police Review Board absolved them doesn't make it right.
Right.
Think that what it exposed in this case is how poorly that group is trained at handling these serious cases. They don't have the experience they need to investigate, to drill through information. Instead, they relied on a city-paid investigator to do their due diligence, supposedly. But if people are afraid to rock the boat, they won't rock the boat. So let me go back to what we're talking about as far as the clergy. One thing I forgot to say is that I come to recognize that not everybody knew what to do in this situation. This was a perfect storm. This is off the charts when it talks about hurricanes. I don't think everybody knew what to do. And I think you're right where I know I can hear you now say, Chris, you're giving them a pass. You know what? I'm giving them a pass, not for their benefit,
That's
but
the
for mine.
That's the Christian in you.
You're right.
Stan.
Right. So my point is, I'm giving them a pass for me, not for them. Because if I don't give them a pass and all I do is focus on what they didn't do for me, and people have their biases. So when they watch the show or listen to the show, they're like, he's woe is me, woe is me. He's talking about accountability for everybody else. Well, what is he going to do? AJP is what I did. So when I realized that our bishops, our pastors, had no remedy in place for this, even though they have the direction manual. They have the life manual. So it doesn't matter whether they're a bishop, doesn't matter whether they're associate pastor or whatever. Because they call themselves Christians, they are required to do justice, period. So it doesn't matter what their salary is in the church, whether they're their job is to do justice. And because they didn't know how to do it, and when my personal prayer time is, well, then, Chris, they don't do it, then I'm going to hold you accountable. You do it. And I did. That's why we developed Coach. which is a coalition organized against chokeholds. It doesn't matter whether you're atheist. It doesn't matter whether you're Catholic. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim. If you are committed to justice, we want you to be a part of Coach. And this is the way we are going to, as the people, we're going to take the power from these people that we trusted. And we can't correct the error until 2 years or 4 years down the road. We can correct it now because, in my opinion, just like you said before, some of these folks who've been involved, just graciously step down. Just resign. Do what Richard Colangelo Jr. did when all this was coming up behind the scenes. He resigned. Do what the prosecutor in this case did. She resigned.
Jim Robella.
Some of those judges are still there.
How about Jim Robella? He resigned.
Great. A lot of these folks start to resign to get in.
From the state police.
Well, he's Commissioner of Public Safety.
Yeah.
Right. I said this before where Chief Justice Robinson announced his retirement a week before my ruling came out. I don't know if they're related or not, but some folks say, yeah, he's getting out of Dodge by all means. Listen, he was in that seat from 2018 when this whole situation started. And now it's pretty much ended. I mean, the Supreme Court is the highest ruling. We still have some low-hanging fruit to deal with because some other agencies just can't help themselves. So, again, CCSU is being one of them. This president did a commercial last week, and she kept stating, of course, I'm the president of Central. Of course I eat in the dining room. I'm the president of Central. Of course I do these things. And you know what my message is? You're the president of Central Connecticut State University. Of course you've protected a rapist for the last 6 years. Of course you gave that rapist tenure after I reported to you and I blew the whistle to you. Of course you're going on trial in September this month. Of course you're going to cost the taxpayers more money. Why? Because you're the president who has failed at being honest and having an integrity to do the right thing. So accountability is coming.
Well, for me, brother, the thing is that, and I just want to clear this up. I don't know if it's a Christian mentality or if it's an individual mentality, but, holding people accountable is giving them a pass. You know what I'm saying? When you don't hold them accountable, is when you don't give them a
Pass?
Yes, absolutely.
You mean not holding them accountable?
No. When you hold them accountable, you giving them an opportunity to speak on why they behave in the way that they behave or why they did what they did. You know what I'm saying?
See, we have a different understanding of accountability because to me, if there's no consequence, there's no accountability. I don't want to hear what you have to say about it.
Right.
Consequence is directly linked to accountability.
Well, sometimes you need sometimes you need that and sometimes you don't, brother. But the other thing
how are you holding people accountable?
Because when you it's like Maya Angelou said, brother. When you know better, you do better.
To Chris's point, if they don't know, how can they?
Well, I think that it's hard for me to fathom that any high-level clergy in the state of Connecticut doesn't know about Chris Duke's case, because Chris Duke's case is our Rodney King case. You know what I'm saying?
Well, see,
this is the highest case that we've had. Everything that happened, the people involved, it's really hard for me to.
See, you give people way. You're ceding to them way much more than they may be.
Yeah.
Because folk don't know about everything.
Yeah.
No.
You called me, asked me if I knew about this woman up at the state.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard the child before.
Yeah. Bowden Lewis.
Yeah. I ain't never heard of her.
So
Let's
listen,
talk about that before we go. Go ahead,
and before we finish about this topic in particular, I just want to say that there's a talk about a chief coming right to Hartford. A new chief. They're picking a new chief, and for all you idiots out there that keep talking about it, you shouldn't be having this conversation with anybody unless the person that's running for chief is talking about police reform, right? Talking about prosecuting officers who turn off their body cameras when they're engaging with the public. You know what I'm saying?
Have you had conversations with any of the candidates?
Ain't none of them talking about that stand?
I would beg to differ.
Who's talking about that? I have not. To answer your question, I have not.
Talk to them.
Okay.
All of them. One will emerge who will, without prompt, bring those things up.
Okay. Well, that's what we want. And those are the things that we need. Because people need to be managed, not police. See, if we change the language, everything changes.
Right, but that's to my point. A lot of times we make the assumption that people know when they don't. And all I'm saying is not that these individuals should not be held accountable for their lack of, but to assume that they know without asking them, and then is I think people are not as plugged in as we may think they are, because they're in their own sphere, and taking care of their own crises.
Yeah. So for Chris, what I would say to you, when you said that, like, when people don't know what to do, right? When you told me that you were sick, what was the first thing that I said to you? I'm gonna tell you what it was, because you know it's hard for people to remember particular conversations like that, right? Yeah. But when you told me, I may be coming down with a flu or whatever, you had something going on. Right. The first thing that I said to you, since I didn't know what to do, I said, Chris, let me know what I can do. Yeah. And see, that's what people need to learn, to ask that simple question, because we don't know. We talked about support, right, in the past. On this show, I talked about support, how people don't really want to support you because they always equate support with money. But support comes in other ways. And, yes, sir. And I think that the best way that you can support someone, anyone, is by asking them, what can I do?
I agree with you. I would also add this, because I'm just thus saith stand, not necessarily the truth. Sometimes, and I many cases, I don't want your support. You know what you could do to help me? Right. Stay out the way.
Okay.
And because we have a lot of allies.
Yes.
A lot of allies who think they're helping because they don't know what to do. Right. So they attempt to help in areas that they believe are good when they're actually making things worse. Everyone doesn't need to come to the battle. Yeah. The people who can help you should. Everyone can't help, and all skin folk ain't kin folk. Yeah. So you'll be careful who you invite to your aid. Yeah. Because the knife that drags on the floor, you don't know who hit you in the nighttime. Don't always be so eager to have everybody run up. Because a lot of people who you may think aren't plugged are very plugged. Yes. And sometimes their help is to hinder. That's all I'm saying. Don't. And
let me put the microscope even over my own family. So again, I'm willing to talk about what happened with my own family. To just reinforce my statement, my family was used to coming to award ceremonies with me. They were used to coming to promotional ceremonies. They're coming to performances that I had all around the state and region. So they're used to seeing me doing what I do, what my persona is, what people know me to do. They're not used to coming to a criminal court, seeing me shackled around and all. They didn't know what to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? So this is why I go back. I really believe folks didn't know what to do. So therefore, how could I hold those folks who clearly didn't know accountable? Would I have loved to have seen, I've had my family get together 2 coach buses to go to the Nordic Lodge or do a trip or something together, but my family did not get 2 coach buses to come up to the Justice for Dukes rally. See what I mean? So it's different. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks didn't know what to do. A lot of folks were hurt. As I said, when I spoke to Hartford Police that night in the first call, so many people, I'm sorry that so many people are going to be hurt by this. Even though you all weren't me that time, you do carry something, because the hurt to happen upon me and the other cases that we've been exposing triggers you in some way, because it affects us, and you care about the community.
Well, Chris, first let me say this. I appreciate the fact that you're giving everybody a pass. You know what I'm saying, for what they didn't know. But I'll tell you how I look at it. Yep. I think that the black and brown community has been socialized and trained and indoctrinated to respond to situations in a certain way, especially when it comes to violence against us and against an individual. We really have been trained not to get involved because it could happen to us.
There it is.
Right? But now we're past that.
Yes.
So now, like I said earlier, like Maya said, when you know better, you do better.
Yes.
We're past that point now.
Right.
So what are these individuals? What is the mayor, the president, the past mayor? What are what are the police doing to clear up what they did? What's happening?
Right.
And these people that I mentioned, the clergy and others, what are they doing now?
Right.
That we're past that fear point.
There it is.
You know, what are we doing now?
There-
Since we know
thank
better,
you.
what are we doing?
And that's the
what
point.
I'm interested in. This
Moving
is the kind
forward.
of accountability that I'm talking about. Stan.
And there's a tool to do better.
Right.
There's a tool to do better. Now, I met Brother Chris as he called to talk to me about his situation. And he came, and I says, well, you know, have you come and speak to the Alliance? And the Alliance really couldn't do anything. We weren't set up to do anything. He joined the Alliance. Another brother joined the Alliance. Was able to hook the two of them up. And now there's a tool. See, the Alliance can never say we can't do anything about this.
Right.
You see, we're willing to stand with him, to help him, give him some moral support, do what we can. To your point, what can we do? All right. But there isn't always something that can be done.
Right.
And I think sometimes we enter into a state of recklessness. The idea of, well,
give me an example of when something can't be done, because I'm a little stuck on that.
okay. That's a good point.
Yeah. And for the audience, Stan, you know?
Right. Doing something for the sake of doing something is of no value.
Right.
Unless that something is the right thing.
Yeah, but you still have. I need a concrete example. Those are just words. They don't have nothing.
I gave one with the Alliance. There's nothing we couldn't rally with him. We couldn't pick a side.
Why not?
Because that's not how we're set up. Well, we could have a vote. We could change our bylaws to do this for a particular individual. The argument is that this is something that affects the community broadly. And as such, then we could move forward on it. But we don't do personal issues. That's just how we are set
Okay,
up.
and that's
So therefore, there wasn't
it's
really
understandable.
And
anything we could do. So that's an example. Because I believe you can do something doesn't mean something can be done.
And Stan knows where I stand with this. Is I 100% absolutely disagree that the Alliance could not have done something.
Right.
And admire, because this does affect the community abroad. Because this means that at any given Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that the Hartford police wants to, they can pluck a father out of his home, away from his children. They can pluck the homeowner away from the home. They can spin the narrative and manipulate the media and certain things. They can do every element of the chokehold on there. And if they can do it to me, they can do it to you all. So what I started to question as an individual, if it happened to someone like a Lieutenant Paul West, would it now been looked at as a global issue? So what was it about me? And I think part of it was, what was the cloud over my name? People still didn't know me, but all they knew about me was what they read in the newspaper. Hey, wait a minute. We got to make sure this guy's safe because they're saying he kidnapped his wife. He beat his wife. He did all these things. So I understand the apprehension.
And he may have a gun.
Oh, you're right.
Which the most dangerous thing in America is what? What's the most dangerous thing in America, Chris?
Right.
A black man with a gun.
And you will
Stop
see.
it.
Hey, listen, look at all those court records again. Not one of them talk about the fact that I had a Second Amendment right to have that. Not one of them talk about that I had a Fourth Amendment right not to allow police in my home when they did not have a warrant. I don't know if it's still there in the lobby of the public defender's office in Hartford, but if you go in, there used to be a picture. I took a picture of it just so I could always have it memorialized. It reads, if the police show up at your house without a warrant, tell them by. That is what we are informing the public, because that's our right. They don't want you to know your right, and if you exercise your rights, it'll come down. I had a Hartford police officer tell my mother that I should know better. Look at the kind of car I drive. I'm well educated. What does that have to do with anything?
Nothing.
But that's what.
Well, they have a mental picture of what black and brown people should dress like, speak like, behave like,
Yep.
the kind of food we should eat, you know, everything. They have a mental. It's
Right.
just like that chokehold, but they have their own,
Right.
graph
Right.
of how we should be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But Chris, the thing that I would say to you, man, is that anyone who thinks that your case didn't impact your family, your community, the whole state, the whole nation, actually, is a fool, because I use the same rubric that I used for when I worked in the schools that I used to teach principals. When you discipline a student, how it affects, right? When you suspend a student, right? It affects that student because now he's not learning. It affects the family because now that mother may have to take a day off or whatever. It affects the school because now the school's going to have another absentee, another suspension, whatever. And it affects the district the same way. But not least of all, it affects the community.
There you go.
Because that student, that school, that family, that district, they're all part of what? They're all part of the community.
There you go.
And for you, it's much worse, my man. I hate to put it in these terms, but for example, your children. I think your children should have access to mental health for the rest of their lives, paid for by the state. Yes.
I agree.
For their lives.
I agree.
Okay, and just a host of other things, because your family, you lost friends, you lost trust in other people's eyes, a lot of things. So how they look at you impacted their lives.
That's right.
Well, see, I
know
think
what
you
I'm saying?
could. I think
So-
I think this gets back to what we talked about at the beginning when somebody is falsely accused, because the cloud that sits over you is something that in real time you have to navigate.
Yes.
Which he did artfully, and now there's a best practices, policies, and procedures, if you will, on how to navigate that.
That's right.
Yes.
Because it's codified or sealed with the Supreme Court victory here in the state of Connecticut. So because someone accuses you does not make you guilty.
Absolutely.
And because the police say it is so,
Right.
does not make it. The police
That,
are not.
that makes it even less likely.
But the police are not the jury. They're not the judge.
Right.
They're there to arrest, detain, collect information, but they can't make a proclamation. And too many people see to them, because the police are reporting it, that it's somehow right. And these things need to be unpacked, particularly
Yes.
when there's a bias that starts off with you with
Yes.
brown skin are guilty.
Right.
You're guilty from the jump.
Yes.
Now you have to prove your innocence, and there's an active purposeful push to cause people in this country to be guilty by default.
Yes.
And your innocence must now be proven. And it's across the board. Right. So for folks who are quote unquote black and brown, it's almost like you're doomed. It's a miracle that he is alive. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for his training, he wouldn't be.
Yeah. All you had to do was make one mistake that day, and they would have stormed his house, possibly killed him and his children, because those fools don't give a damn. But let me say this, Stan. Once and I think we all know this very clear, right? But once the Supreme Court ruled that the police can lie, it made them all criminals. Because the idea was that they could lie to apprehend the criminal, but now they lie to make you a criminal, which is quite different. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like gambling. When gambling was introduced to sports, it became corrupt. Yeah. Now you allow cheating. Right. They go hand in hand. Lying.
Well, what about him? I couldn't resist.
What about what?
Hemp.
Hemp is great, man.
I couldn't resist.
Yeah. And when we go back to, it was something you said before about indoctrination, and again, I think I talked about roots the movie Roots back then, forcing Kunta Kinte to take the name of Toby.
Change your name.
This is what happens. So your neighbors may not want to come out and feel safe because they don't want what happened at this house to happen at their house. Your family may not want to. Hey, listen, there's some folks who have good reputations all around, and they were like, wait a minute, you're associated. I can tell you my colleagues at Central Connecticut State University, colleagues who stopped talking because they're afraid of being associated. There are rumors about people not getting job opportunities because they supported me up front. They're rumors, so I'll stress that. But in reality, for folks who've been there, they know there's some merit.
Well, there's a rumor. There's a rumor when you say it, Chris, but I guarantee you that it's not a rumor to the person that happened.
That's right. It's a reality for some of these folks too. So one image, if I can give of visualization for those who are just listening on the air, is if we put up a map of Hartford right now, and we put a pin where every member of the alliance, let's say I'm just using the alliance for the first example, where they're located, and let's put let's put like the game of Operation, put a body on the wall. There's a body, and then over that body we're going to put the map of Hartford, and we're going to put a pin for every member of the alliance. If every member of the alliance became a member of Coach, that coalition formed coalition against chokeholds. If we put them on there, and whether it be at their jobs, at their churches, they start to spread this word. Look at the infection on that body. Look at all the points of that body where justice is being infused, right? That's the image that I have in mind where we can be. But it also COVID started at one place, and then it just spread. That's what I want to do with regarding justice. Really make it viral, as Ruha Benjamin has said in her book, Viral Justice. Now, let's take down the alliance. Let's look at our churches. So I'm a big believer that churches need to be who they claim they be. Otherwise, they're going to answer to the God that they claim that they believe in. Look at all the networks across this country of all the churches. Let's pump the chokehold and Coach into all those. Look at how widespread we are across this country already with it. Let's look at it at Democratic Party. Let's look at Republican Party. We're everywhere. This is remind me of the X-Men movie when you see where all the mutants live. Right? They show the global map.
They're everywhere.
We can spread justice like that if we really commit to it. So therefore, we put people in the seat to represent us who justice is a part of their platform. I can't name anybody that I know of in this state that ran on a platform for justice. I heard about law and order and tough on juvenile teens and all that. I've heard those kinds of things.
So how do you define the justice? How do you define justice? Because it seems to be somewhat
justice is very broad,
right?
And the root of justice is fairness and balance and respect and harmony. So this is where we talk about even restorative justice. Me giving someone a pass on the radio by saying, I don't believe they knew what was going on. And there's some people I fully know, but they didn't know better. Now they have no excuse. Right. So therefore, moving forward, them being part of, I know I'm off on your question. Sorry about that.
No, because you're actually going down an avenue.
He's going to get there in a roundabout way, Stan.
Ignorance of a thing doesn't make you, a fool or foolish.
Right.
You just don't know.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know. So
my mission moving forward is to end the chokehold. And this is not an anti-police initiative. In fact, in my opinion, the police should be the first people leading this. So I don't care if we introduce it and then it becomes a federal program where there's federal law that says we will not use the chokehold as we police our people. We will not. And this is why I said last time, by the end of 2024, every mayor or town manager of the city will receive the chokehold in their mailbox.
I think the chokehold is brilliant. I as soon as I can, I want a poster. I want a poster on my wall of this. This chokehold, these 16 points.
Yep.
Should become part of the justice system.
Yes.
Because and people should know these. Like kids should be taught this in kindergarten.
Absolutely.
Because once you understand this, it's like everything I learned.
Yes.
I learned in kindergarten.
Yes.
Well, then you can say, well, you know what? I learned the chokehold in kindergarten, so you can't try that on me.
Exactly. If you understand these principles, then it could be it do unto others as you would have others do unto you.
That's life-saving knowledge.
Yeah. So
Life-saving knowledge, and understand, folks, that all those things that Chris outlines on that lead to two things, which is lack of access and criminalization.
Yes.
That's how they get us every time.
right, this
So again, I know.
they use these things to make you confess to something you're not guilty of.
Yes, and Stan, I see the back page that I know I'm going to hold up the back page. So you have the front that you were showing, but it's the back that shows the impact. All right, and I don't think we've talked about that. We're talking about over 3,500 people exonerated since 1989. We're talking about more than 60% of those cases involve perjury, false accusations. 60%. That's a problem. That more than a third of those cases were for no crimes at all. Just misclassified. They weren't even a crime. And these people were convicted. Over half of these exonerations related to some form of prosecutorial misconduct, police misconduct, or judicial misconduct. That in itself is reason why this should be on the platform for our national level and our local politicians and so forth, because you're not addressing this. You're okay with innocent Americans going to jail. We're not. Over 32,000 years lost. Combined.
People's lives.
32,000 years.
People's lives,
Just
man.
think of where our country could be. How great we really could be.
And now, with all that you're saying, Chris, here's a thought for folks out there. How about if we educate the police that when they show up, they do everything in their power to find you innocent?
That's an interesting thing. I think that's your attorney's job, but
Well, the problem I have with it, it swings the pendulum the other direction, whereas the police department should be neutral. Their job is to gather as much information as possible.
Evidence.
Not assigning credibility on the scene. No. Gather as much evidence as you possibly can, because that's what's going to help the parties. Due process.
Well, not just evidence,
equal
brother,
protection
but
under the
right
law.
evidence.
Oh, I trust me.
Because look
evidence
at what
is
happened in
evidence.
your case. They gathered all the wrong evidence.
no.
Oh, that's the tell them.
No. They had, in fact, the evidence was the big. It's the 50,000 watt bulb in the dark room.
Yes.
The duct tape.
Yes.
It isn't that they don't have the right evidence.
They got rid of it.
It's right.
Ooh.
Destruction, either destruction of evidence or withholding it from coming forth.
Maybe that particular police class had a class in magic.
Yeah,
'Cause
the
it
class of
disappeared.
magic. It's called corruption.
Yeah. Again, they got it. They created it. And you know from the DNA results they created it. It didn't come from me. Didn't contribute one bit of DNA. That's a shame. So they created it, and then when they got called out on it,
They got rid of it.
They hid reports, and then 2 years after dismissal, when I was seeking criminal prosecution of my accuser and her accomplices, they destroyed it. Then, I was more dangerous to them with that roll of duct tape than I was with all the firearms and ammo that I rightfully owned. So, I'm trying to think. Well, there was one other thing that I wanted to say based on what you said. And it's back to that indoctrination. You're right. They whip people into submission to where they listen. I love you, Chris, but I don't want those 10 slashes you got.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I know people love me. And what it's created for me is I don't walk around with the vinegar of venom towards them. I don't. But I know where my circle of trust is. I learned a lot about people. The people that were willing to be there in the valley or were motivated and moved to be in the valley. I'm sitting in front of two of them right here, right now. You know,
I think what has helped me do, Chris, some of the things that I've gone through, and I'm sure that it applies to you and a lot of other people, it's just made me be able to look at things and people clearly and see who they are, not who they say they are.
yes.
And a lot of people that have all these claims about being community and about helping, they're the ones that are doing more destruction than anybody else because of their compliance. and they're seeing what they do. So I'm going to say this. If you're a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim, and your rabbi, your imam, or your pastor, or your priest is not organizing your church to protest what's going on in Palestine, then you and your church and your followers are all guilty of what's going on over there. So put the pressure on, and let's clean that up.
You had referenced Bowden Lewis earlier, and this is what I was thinking of. Talking to Dr. Maya Bowen, I remember months ago, she had talked about the fact that our community will allow the media to say whatever they want about us. They will allow the police to treat us in other ways, whereas other communities...
That's how we've been socialized, brother.
Yep,
I keep saying that damn near every show. That's how we've been socialized.
We haven't been socialized. We've been domesticated.
Right, and we talk about our fellow...
I'm going to be kind when I speak about us.
Our Jewish neighbors who are leading appropriately. When something happens against their community, they stand together and they will make sure you know, hey, we're not going to tolerate this. Give you a good example is we talked about our chief public defender,
Deshaun Bowden Lewis.
Yes. What hurts me is every time I see the art, she was hired to be the chief public defender, not hired to be the first black chief public defender. Yet and still, almost every title that I see in the Hartford Courant always references her as black. I'm proud that she's black. Hopefully, she's proud that she's black as well. But they use that as a stain, not as a flower. And that's my point. Is keep
that's a
ringing
reminder,
the bell.
Chris.
It's a reminder that folks, some people, the opinion may be, they didn't want her there to begin with. And when she started,
it's a reminder to both sides.
It's
a reminder to both sides.
Yep.
It's a reminder to black people, black and brown people, of what happens when you don't do what we tell you. And the same thing that happened with you happened with her.
There it is.
Right? She had no support. Nobody. I called a lot of people. She was tried and hung in public. Okay? And that's what happened. You can't put it no other way. And there was no support for her. I called a lot of people.
You did.
And nobody spoke up for her. And so it's a reminder to white people of how to handle black and brown people who don't do what we tell them.
Hey,
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways for us.
Right.
And that's why now that it's over, right? Now that we know the fear factor is over for this woman. She was terminated in public. Her, her employment record was it's a lot of things that happened that are not normal, even illegal. And nobody spoke up about it. And I'm deeply ashamed of the so-called black and brown leadership, the political and the clergy, man. They didn't step up for that woman, nobody. And I remember that criminal, Gail Hardy. She's a criminal, right? She was feted and touted, right? For allowing all these police criminals to get away with stuff in our community. You know what I'm saying? So we have to learn to look at things, for what we see and not what people are telling us that we see.
Well, I think it would be better if we looked through the lens of justice. Because, as I mentioned, and as you know, all skin folk ain't kinfolk. Right. And just because someone is black, brown, BIPOC, call them whatever you want, flavor of the day, does not mean that they, by default, are some part of some group that's going to be in your benefit.
Well, I've stated this before, and I'll state it again, brother. Some of the worst enemies that we have in our community are people who look like us.
Absolutely. That goes without saying.
And I'll give you another example of why we need to keep the pressure on. The police union gave Jason Thody 2 votes of no confidence. And on the first one, Luke Bronin should have got rid of him. But he didn't. And now that Arunan was there, I think one of the first things she should have did was got rid of him. Even though he's leaving now, right?
He's leaving.
Because we know when.
Because of that.
That was announced
reason.
In January.
Yeah, but you can't.
I know, but he should, and that would have been a good enough reason if he would have said, "Well, I got to let him go," because if the police officers don't want him, how are they going to do their job if they don't trust the guy they're working for? You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. Now I said before, when he leaves, now Leslie's leaving. Who's going to be the superintendent? I've said it many times before. When we, the community, select somebody, we need to have 3 or 4 people behind that person in case that person dies, gets another job, they leave, they get fired. Who's going to be? We don't have somebody that we have been talking about for 3 or 4 years who's going to take Thordy's place when he leaves.
Let's see
or
that.
whatever. And the same thing for superintendent.
Right. So, community leaders who are the real leaders of the community, quote unquote, real, as you define real. It is their responsibility to make sure that the bench is staffed. It's not enough to put someone in and then expect everybody else to come along and maintain it. The maintenance has to be done by the people who are moving the agenda forward, not by, well, I did my part. I'm going on vacation now. You all step up. There is no one to step up. If it wasn't for the persons moving the agenda forward, it would never have gotten forward. So I think part of our problem is we don't have a community. You know, he talked about a community that comes together. We don't have one, and I think we have to be honest about that. We try to create we create, quote unquote, a community, because we can look out and we can see that there's people who are, their hue, their tone is similar.
Right.
So they by default are part of my community. Not necessarily so. Right. By any stretch. No more than all white folks are part of a broader community. They may have common foes, but they don't have common interests. They have interests that are unique to them and their subsets.
But I think you might be not understanding what you're saying, because if they have common foes, that in itself is a common interest.
No. I would debate that.
Okay.
I would debate that.
Think about that.
Right. When I say common foes, I'll be more specific.
Right.
It may be to their advantage to exploit black folk, but the exploitation of black people is not necessarily working to move their interests forward, because their interest isn't the demise of black folk. Their interest is the moving forward of their agenda. Our interest oftentimes seems to be always centered around white folks. Anytime your interest includes white people as part of the statement, you're already jammed up. Because it shouldn't be framed in the context of white people. If you need white people to frame what it is you're doing, then they're setting the boundaries and the limitations. In countries where everyone is black, their interests, their corruption, their greed, their avarice, their generosity, their kindness, their grace is not framed around white people. It's framed around their particular interests. So here we have, quote unquote, the separation because of white people and the atrocities done unto black folk, that black folk oftentimes can't move beyond. So that becomes a limiting factor. But white folks, Italians, Irish, Jewish people who have white skin don't have common interests. They have an agenda for their people.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with moving an agenda for your people forward. It should be done so without apology. Right. Because you have a responsibility to move your people and your agenda forward.
That's right. The key is to find that common ground first.
Right. And
I think folks assemble, and then they try to find common ground, and then there's the infighting.
Right.
Because we didn't have agreement of the common.
We didn't come together
goal.
for common
Right.
ground. We came together because we all got the same skin tone.
There.
And
there it
assumption
Right.
is, well, we all black, so we all brown, and so we all have to agree on. And no, you shouldn't even be in the room with this person because they are not on the same page.
And so again, I'm optimistic that change is going to happen. Again, the fact that I know this is my mission moving forward, I have to. This is what I need to keep working at, not pass off and do anything else. If I look at the supporters that we were able to assemble, we all came together on a common issue. We want to see justice.
Right.
I had Trump supporters, Biden supporters. I had black, I had white. I had people in their 80s, people in their 20s. There were so many different people. And when I say this is the kind of support that I received. And we all came together for one common goal. So I know it's possible.
Absolutely.
They set their differences aside to make sure that injustice didn't spread. They recognized that injustice could happen to them.
See, justice is colorblind.
Yes.
Those who apply justice are not.
There it is.
So if you leave those who are not aligned with that objective out, you will achieve your objective.
Yes.
You don't need 32,000 people for a fight that only requires 300.
There it is.
Bring the 300 that can get the job done. The others, go home, enjoy yourself. Here, let me give you some money. Go on vacation.
Yes.
Stay out of the way. You know, everyone doesn't need to be here.
Right.
That's just me.
So I've been saying we need to have a national justice league like they have the Super Friends. That's how
I like that.
I enjoy the Super Friends. I'm looking for a justice league. So I've spoke to the Innocence Project in New England, other folks. We have enough right here. The initiatives that are going on in New Haven with all those folks who were wrongfully convicted or incarcerated. I had some family members tied up in that as well too. Man, we have the opportunity right now. It's prime for us right now, not to live in the past about what they've done to us, but about what we are going to do to make sure they never do it again.
That's what's up.
This is where we're going.
That's what's up. That's beautiful, Chris. Beautiful.
All right, last words.
I just want to say to the community that when you know better, you do better. And we have to learn to not support political parties or individuals, but vote on issues. When you vote on issues, you can't go wrong. And that's where you create the type of coalitions that Chris is talking about, because we're fighting towards common goals that that's going to make us a better people overall. Thank you so much. Enjoy your week.
Thank you. And I say that our common goals is wanting safer streets, safer schools, fair pay, living in free and peace, and really being able to pursue happiness in this country. It all starts with justice.
All right. All right, our time together has come to an end. We'll let Jay Hogarth and the gang take us out. Y'all have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for gracing us with your presence.
Well, man, once again, Chris, outstanding.